So in other words, whilst the orthodox view blames poverty on the poor countries themselves, the alternative view tends to blame poverty more on the actions of the rich countries who have created a global economic system, a global economic structure that systematically privileges themselves at the expense of the global south. So the third main difference between the orthodox and alternative views of development is on the issue of how then to solve and resolve poverty, how to tackle poverty. So for the alternative view, you don't tackle poverty simply by opening up to the global economy, embracing free markets, free trade and so on. In fact, they argue this is likely to make things worse as you're opening yourself up to increased exploitation effectively by the global north if you do that. So rather they argue the solution lies in practicing self-reliance. So they will support policies that make countries of the global south less dependent on the unfair global trading system rather than more dependent. This is what the Egyptian economist Samir Amin called delinking from the global economy. So the argument of the alternative theorists of development is actually that it's engagement with the global economic structures, being tied into these global economic structures in an unprivileged way, being tied into a subordinate role in the global economic structure is what causes poverty. So you need to delink from that structure, to be self-reliant and not reliant on, for example, investment from the global north, or reliant on selling goods to the markets of the global north. Rather, the global south needs to become self-reliant and also develop what are called south-south relations, where the global south are cooperating more with each other and delinking from the global north altogether. So a good example of this would be Venezuela and Cuba have what's called an oil for doctors deal, where Cuba has a very good healthcare system. And so they've actually provided 50,000 doctors to Venezuela to work in Venezuela's slums and poor areas and so on, in exchange for Venezuela providing Cuba with 100,000 barrels of oil per day, which is very useful for Cuba because the US has very strict and severe sanctions on Cuba, amounting to what Cuba calls a blockade actually. So Cuba's providing Venezuela with doctors, Venezuela's providing Cuba with oil, and in that way they're bypassing the whole financial system and monetary system that's dominated by the global north. So for the alternative theorists of development, this is the way forward to lift global south countries out of poverty, by delinking from the northern dominated economic structure and practicing south-south cooperation. And the alternative view focuses on, as I've mentioned before, human development, not just economic growth. So it has a much broader view of what poverty is and a broader view of what development is, less narrow than this idea that it's just something to do with levels of monetary income. And most importantly, the alternative view rejects the oversimplified idea that free markets always lead to development. Rather, they tend to believe that in one way or another, the economy needs to be regulated in the interest of the people. So therefore, they believe that there is a fundamental and crucial role for the state in economic development. So this is the opposite of the orthodox view that prosperity comes when the state steps back and does not intervene in the market and in the economy. Most alternative theories of development argue that there is a vital economic role for the state in reducing poverty, bringing out development, whether this is by guiding investment according to a strategic plan, which is what the so-called East Asian tiger of the economies of the 80s did so successfully, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan and others, and also what China has done in recent years, or whether it's by levying high taxes on the wealthy to pay for health and education provision, which is what's been done recently in Venezuela. Either way, the alternative view of development sees a vital economic role for the state, in stark contrast to the orthodox view, which opposes government intervention in the economy on principle.